All right, guys, welcome back. And today I'm going to be talking about a new machine that I have here in the shop. Some of you may be familiar with it, but this is the new 6-watt Acmer that I got about a week or so ago. I've been testing the machine out, running it through the paces, just trying to make sure that there isn't anything, surprising about it. But so far, it's performed really well. This is going to be the machine that I'm going to be giving away, going to be having a drawing for. And if you want to stick around, we'll maybe get into the drawing a little bit more. I do have some information from Acmer that I'll be adding some freebies to the giveaway as well. So this video is not going to be concentrating on putting the machine together or setting it up or anything like that. I'll have a later video for that. This is just going to be my first impressions of this machine. I've run it for about a week. I've used all types of mediums for the machine to test it out. Guys, this is a 6-watt. So if you're looking for something to do a lot of cutting of thicker materials, not going to be really something that I would recommend for that. But if you primarily operate with 3mm material or thinner, or if you're a paper crafter that's looking at adding a laser to be able to use to cut such things as cardstock or chipboard, stuff like that, then you may want to give it a look, because with a $200 price tag, it's not a bad deal for something like that. So we're going to move the camera over and discuss the build quality and what I think about that, and then we're going to go through some of the testing, so stick around. All right, guys, so as far as the build goes, typical 2020 aluminum extrusions, it's not a overly robust machine, but it is more than adequate considering the size of the module as far as any kind of movements or anything. It does use the rollers on those 2020 extrusions. Now, one thing that I did notice, and I really wasn't expecting it from a machine that's this much of a budget machine, is instead of some of the machines use 3 rollers to run along the extrusions, this one actually has 4. That helps keep the gantry a lot more secure, makes it a lot truer, and makes it run really, really well. Now, you'll notice with this machine, and I'm going to move this Honeycomb out of the way. This is not an Acmer Honeycomb. They didn't send me a Honeycomb with this machine. Party foul on their part, but this is my little testing Honeycomb that I use when machines come in to do a lot of the testing. I did some of the testing in Enclosure Zilla over there, but we're going to get this out of the way so I can kind of show you some of the things that I like about the machine, some of the ways that I think they've innovated it while keeping it, in an affordable format, but some corners that they cut a little bit. So let me get this out of the way. All right, so we will touch on the fact that the build didn't take all of that long. It took me a little longer than usual because I do plan to disassemble this and repackage it to ship out to the lucky winner of the drawing. But for the most part, like I said, even the gantry, and I'll rotate it around. Let me disconnect these cables here. The machine does only have the 2 cables, which is going to be the power and the USB. We'll go ahead and touch on that. This is the little focusing tool. You'll need it to focus the machine. We'll go ahead and talk about this. It does have a removable shield. Now, one thing that I did learn about this machine that it kind of threw me for a minute is when you have the lens on there, the lens, this little protective lens is magnetic, so you can take that off and you can put it back on. A lot of the machines on the market, typically you're going to take this and put underneath the little protective shield. With this machine, I found that instead of that, you put it under the edge of the metal here, and that's where I've been running the focus, is underneath the edge of the metal. And it makes sense because this is magnetic, so you can take it off. So when this is off, you still have to have a point to reference to get your focus, and that would be just under the edge of the metal housing for the machine. Now, over here on this side of the machine, you'll see it's very, very basic, guys. You've got this plate. They do got some pretty cool little graphics kind of cut into the machine. And yes, guys, these belts are a little bit excessive, but I didn't want to cut those because if I trim those now, the person who wins the machine could have a harder time putting it back together. So we're just going to kind of tuck those guys out of the way for now and pretend that I have cut those off. The biggest complaint, I guess, I had when I first got the machine out of the box and got it put together was the cable management was a little lacking, which is to be expected for a $200 machine. I've never had a budget machine in the shop that didn't have some cable management issues. Now, however, luckily, I had built these little 3D printed holders right there for some other machines that I had that had the same issue. And coincidentally, this machine has white accents, and I had a couple of extra white ones sitting around. So I printed out some white accented little cable management clips to go on here. And the winner of this one will get those included in the package. But these are really handy. It allows the module to go back and forth. It doesn't interfere with the machine operating. And the way that I've got this cable kind of ran through here affords it to kind of loop. Now, when you're putting this machine together, you'll have to spend a little bit of time to get the cabling to cooperate and make sure that nothing's going to hit. I've been running this machine for about a week, and I have had no issues with the cables. But it comes with a little hide clip piece that inserts in here that kind of holds the wire going to the stepper. And so I just cut that in half, put half of it on this side, half of it on that side, and I put my little, my larger cable holder in the middle here just to give this some support, and then I put another one back here. So that worked out really well. But you can see, guys, the machine is very, very simple. It's very light, so if picking a machine up, moving it around, or being able to find a place to put it is a concern for you, this thing, it doesn't weigh much at all. It's, like I said, it's the 2020 extrusion, a few steppers, a little bit of cabling, and it's a workable, usable laser. Now, I was surprised that the machine was equipped with limit switches, but guys, it is. Now, it only has homing switches. So that means that before you use the machine, you're either going to have it set in light burn to automatically home so that you know it has, or either you're going to have to home it before you start to do anything. That's very, very standard with most machines. Some will have all four corners, but the lower end budget machines usually only have the two homing switches, if they even have any. A lot of the other machines I've tested in this price range did not come with limit switches. Limit switches do help make the machine a lot more accurate, in my opinion, in my experience, especially when you're trying to batch things out and repeatedly make a product. So coming around to this side, guys, you'll notice that the module is very small. It's sleek. It's got a simple little thumb screw right here for adjusting the Z-axis. It's fairly easy to grip. The one thing about this, the way it's built, there's nothing in the way. So you can grip that thing and turn it. Some of the other machines in the past that I've put out, it was kind of hard to get to. There was things in the way, and so I was a little concerned at first with this one, but it's not a problem. There is, on the back of the Z-axis, you do have like this little place that you can strap this if you need. They include these little brackets. I have found that other than maybe over a period of time, you could get a little bit of wear from the back and forth motion on the plug here on the back of the module. But for the testing that I've been doing, the cable stayed out of the way, and I haven't attached that. Module is very simple. It does not have an air assist, and this lens right here is easy to get to clean. You will want to make sure you maintain that, keep that clean. But with the way the air flows through the machine, and you can possibly see it's got these little ports where the fan blows through there. It does a really good job of keeping the air off of the lens. I'm sitting here looking at it, and with all the testing and everything that I've done, the lens is still pretty clean. It could use a little touch up, I'm sure, but it's still pretty clean. But taking it off to clean it is painless, guys. You have to unplug this if you need to. The way I've got mine, this one set up currently, I can literally just unplug this or unscrew this and kind of lay this to the side right here and clean it without having to take any wires loose. So serviceability, it's going to be really easy to maintain. Not a whole lot of other things to keep clean other than keeping the little V-grooves here free of debris, dust and stuff like that. Can of compressed air, a nice clean microfiber cloth, and you can clean these really fast. What I do is I will take and push the gantry to the back, clean the front, then pull it to the front and clean the back. It's fairly simple. The controller is very minimal on this machine as far as the size of it. It does stick out the front, so if you're going to be putting it into an enclosure, this is going to be a little bit of added distance to the machine. But one thing that I have learned is this little magnetic cover makes a really good place to keep it if you don't need this off of there or need this moved. It's a really good place to keep this little safety lens that I typically don't use a whole lot. But one thing about it, they did kind of build in like a little air assist cone in there also. And what that does is directs that air that comes from the fan that runs on the module and kind of makes it into a makeshift air assist. But I'm going to say that looking at the design of this, the intention is not necessarily to be an air assist as much as it is to kind of keep wind and air going through there just to keep that stuff off of the lens on the module. But like I said, being able to just kind of magnetically attach it here and keep up with that thing, it's pretty handy because you may come find yourself in some jobs you want it on there, and then other jobs maybe it gets in the way. Because I will tell you, this machine, if you have any warped material, you're probably going to want to take this off if your material is warped, and just make sure you use your safety glasses because this does ride really, really close to the material. You could potentially, shorten it if you wanted, but in my opinion, if the material is warped, wavy, and you think there's a risk, then I would just pop that off and kind of stick it there and get it out of the way. But all in all, guys, the speeds of the machine engraving, the resolution of the engraving has been pretty good. And I've got some materials I'm going to show you that I've tested with the machine, and it's done a really good job within reason. It's a 6-watt. I don't expect it to be able to cut 1/4-inch material in a single pass. That's just a little unrealistic for a 6-watt with no air assist. So let's move over to the testing now, and I'll show you what kind of results you can expect from it. All right, guys, so I've tested all kinds of materials, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on the testing, but I want to show you one thing just to make sure you understand where I'm going with this. This is the material they sent me with the machine. As you can see, I used the material for my testing. This is what I would imagine most people who are going to want this machine are going to want to be using this material. This is a little bit less than 3mm basswood, and it cuts really well with this machine, and it'll cut it in one pass. So this is kind of where, if you're looking at getting this machine, as far as cutting, you're going to want to stay 3mm or less with your woods. And basswood and some of the others are a little easier to cut than, say, birch or some of the harder woods. So keep that in mind. Just because it's 3mm, depending on the material, you may actually have to run more than one pass. But I can tell you the 2mm basswood that it comes with, it cuts pretty well. And if you've ever wondered, well, what kind of projects could you make with 2mm basswood? This is a photo that I engraved, and I made a little stand, and I cut those out of this piece of material here. And that's where this machine is going to excel, is going to be engraving. It's not going to be super fast, but it will have really, really good detail because this is basswood, guys. Basswood is not really known for being the best material to do photos on, but it done a really good job. The resolution is probably could go up a little on it. I think I ran this one at like 300 or 315, trying to get it, pretty tight without making the burn excessively timely. So that worked out pretty well. And while we're on the basswood material, I do have the engrave and cut test that I did. And I used one piece of the material to come up with the settings in order to do this project on it. And so here's this is the cut test. And as you can see, at 10mm a second, it was dropping this stuff clean. There were some other cuts that, may or may not have made it. But to be safe with this machine, just in case there's a knot or a glue pocket or something like that, I would say probably 8.5 would be a good speed to run for cutting. That way you would have consistency. And if you did have a little bit of a variation in the material, you'd still get through it without having to break out a razor or anything. But, you may find that your basswood is consistent and it always cuts at 10mm. And if you do, that's great. So when it comes to engraving, and like I said, I knew that's where this machine was going to excel at. and I did an engraving test. This is that same piece of basswood that came with the machine. And as you can see, the black, I'm wanting to say I used on my image 150 millimeters a second, which is right there. And I ran the power down here at 78, around 78 or 80, I think it was. And so that was my reference for the black. So when I did this image, those were the settings that I chose because I want to go as fast as I can and still get that dark look that I want. And it did a really good job on that. With any machine, belt tension is going to be key to making sure the machine makes perfect squares, perfect circles, and all that. With the less weight of this module, this thing can do scoring really, really fast, and I haven't had any problems with any deviations. I did multiple tests on it to try to determine if it was shifting or if circles weren't going to be circles or squares weren't going to be squares. And so far, the machines perform really well. Because I do a lot of stuff with this Luan plywood that I run, I did do a speed and power test on it just to see how it does because that's the medium that I use the most. And so when I look at the results, I can tell a lot about a machine by looking at this plywood because I've ran so many machines on this. But I will tell you, I didn't get as dark of a finish at the 150 and 80 like I did with the basswood, but it was still a very usable color for any kind of engraving that you were going to be doing. So even a photo on this stuff. So 150 at about 80 millimeters per second with most of your light colored woods, I think it's going to get you in the ballpark of where you're going to want to be with this machine. But one of the things that I think, and you guys know I'm friends with May May over at May May Made It, and a lot of her ladies are crafters and they use paper and they use cardstock and they're all times wanting to make like little cutouts, cards that have pop-ups and that kind of thing. This is a machine that I think is suitable for somebody that's in that. If you want to make like a Christmas card that pops up and turns into a Christmas tree, this is a machine that for 200 bucks, you could do that. Now, I'd probably go ahead and get the Honeycomb to go with it if you don't already have a Honeycomb, but that's not necessarily a requirement. So I went by May May's and I told her, hey, I've got a laser end that I think is good for paper crafters and I want to get some materials to check. And I want materials that you guys doing paper crafting typically use that needs to be cut. Because a lot of folks tell me that with the crickets, it takes multiple passes to cut through chipboard and some of that stuff. So I went by there and May May hooked me up with some samples of chipboard, which I'd never used, but it actually, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, doing small things, it's not a bad medium. So here is some chipboard that I got from May May's, and I've got the white chipboard and the black. But the white and the black chipboard, both of them done really well. The black was a lot more resistant to cutting, but I was able to get it to cut, and it's hard to see on this black because I did a score and you can't really make it out. So at 100% and 85.7, let's see, 85.7% power at 8 millimeters a second, it's cutting completely through the chipboard. So you're looking at about 8 millimeters a second for this stuff, but you're gonna have to run 100% power because apparently the black is harder to cut than the white, which I think it may be just a touch harder compressed because this is some really, really tightly compressed cardboard basically. But 8 millimeters a second, it will cut it. You get nice clean cuts. You can look at the edges here. If I can get it to focus without focusing on me. Nice edges. Engraving it is a no-go. It's black. You can't see the engraving. So cutting only with this material. The white chipboard actually cut better than the black, and at least with the white too, you can actually see the scoring that I did on there, the text. And I'm getting some really good results up to 8 millimeters a second at 100% power, 8.3. So pretty much if you're cutting chipboard from May May's, you're gonna wanna run somewhere in the ballpark of 8 millimeters a second. You can even bump it down to 7 just to be safe if you wanted to. I would not recommend going too terribly slow. The other stuff that I wanted to check, of course, was some cardstock, heavy cardstock. And I do not know what cardstock is. All I know is that May put a post-it on here, said this was a 110-pound cardstock. And it cuts it like butter, okay? Nice, clean cuts you can see there. There's no snags. I know, you know, if you're cutting it with a whatever machine, it may take you a little while to get through this stuff. But with this guy, I ran speeds up. I was using the same test here on these, but for some reason the white, this stuff didn't engrave with the settings I had in there. But you're looking at 10 millimeters a second on this stuff, possibly even higher, because it's still knocking it out, even at 10 millimeters a second. This is a 130-pound cardstock here, and same thing. The only two that it didn't cut out are these two one at the top right here. But you're looking at 10 millimeters a second. I think that's like 40% power over there. Let me see, make sure. So yeah, that's going to be 50% power at 10 millimeters a second. So you could probably stretch this stuff on up to 15 millimeters a second without any issue. The black, same thing. The black, it did cut exceptionally well. Topped it out at 10 millimeters a second, and there's plenty of pedal left there. So this is, if I can see where I wrote on it, 110-pound cardstock. So 110-pound cardstock, 130-pound cardstock, all that stuff is no challenge for the little 6-watt. And the thing that surprised me the most is look how clean the cuts are. I did run a Honeycomb, but this doesn't have any air assist. And with this paper, it's not really browning it. Even on these little cuts right here where they didn't quite go all the way through, it didn't stain the material. There's no scorching or anything like that. So that was actually kind of surprising for me. I don't work a lot with paper, but I thought that with it being paper, especially being white paper, there'd be a lot of staining, because I know a lot of times when you engrave with lasers on wood, you know, you get that little bit of stain around the cut. But even without air assist on this thinner materials, none of that. I didn't have any problems with it at all. And for future guys, thanks to May, I've got me a whole bunch of test material for these smaller lasers. And a lot of folks had reached out to me because I had quit reviewing a lot of the smaller machines. But then I had a few people email me and say, hey, you know, these entry-level machines, the starter machines, the really budget machines is something that I'm into. It's something that I would like to, you know, maybe get my first laser. And so when Acmer, who I've worked with before on the P1 and the P2, both those machines I loved and enjoyed. And matter of fact, the 33-watt is currently being used in Klein's workshop, and he uses that machine to fulfill orders that I pass down to him because I don't always have time to turn out every order that comes in here. And that machine is still in service. So when they reached out and said, you know, we want to try out the 6-watt, I felt like this would be a machine for you guys that are wanting to get into the hobby, but maybe just don't want to drop a whole lot of money, because you can technically get into this machine and get it up and working with the free 30-day trial of Lightburn and the machine for around $200. And if you choose to continue, you can add a honeycomb to it, get yourself an enclosure, all those cool things, and slowly build up to where you're doing projects. If you're a paper crafter or somebody from May's channel, then like I said, this machine, you wouldn't necessarily, if you're not going to be using it a lot, you wouldn't necessarily have to have an enclosure, but you're still going to need to, you know, take it outside or use it somewhere to where that little bit of smoke that comes off the cardstock, which wasn't that bad, you're going to want to vent that outside somehow. But all in all, guys, for the money, it's really doing a good job. The accuracy, I've did several home and send. The machine consistently hits where it's supposed to. So as far as engraving, using jigs, batching stuff out, this machine is more than capable of doing that with the way that it is built. But keep in mind, this is not a cutting machine. This machine will cut these type materials, cardstock, cardboard, poster board, just, you know, paper products, and up to 3 millimeter wood or maybe 3 millimeter black acrylic. But anything beyond that, you're going to get frustrated trying to use this machine to cut it without the air assist and with only 6 watts of power. But I think this is a good machine to get you started. And like I said, if you're a paper crafter, this would really be a lot faster than trying to use a Cricut or some of the blade cutters. The laser doesn't get dull. So as long as you keep the thing clean, keep it running like it's supposed to, you don't have to change out cutter heads or rollers or whatever they have in them. I don't have a Cricut, so I don't know. But All in all, guys, good machine. So now for the important part, let's talk about the giveaway. So when I announced to Acmer, or told them in an email, that I was going to be giving this machine away and donating it to one of you guys, they thought that was a pretty cool idea. And they asked me, they said, well, do you think whoever gets it would like to have a honeycomb to go with it? And of course, who wouldn't? Who doesn't need a honeycomb? If you're getting a machine, why not have a honeycomb to go with it? So they have offered, in exchange for mentioning their Facebook page and telling you guys about their Facebook page. And they also have a sale going on right now for their birthday, 3 years. I think it's a 3-year celebration. And they're offering some discounts and stuff on this machine as well as other machines that they sell. And like I said, I've had the P1, the 10 watt, and I've had the 33 watt here recently. Both good machines. They are significantly less expensive than other brands, but just like with this $200 machine, the build quality is more than adequate to do most of the stuff that you're going to want to do with the machine. So I'm going to be putting links to both Acmer's website down below as well as to their Facebook group. And just if you want to go in there and let them know that you appreciate them participating in the giveaway, or just go check out some of the stuff that they've got in their Facebook group, do that. But they will be contributing the honeycomb kit for this machine. I think it's a 440 by 440 honeycomb. They're gonna ship it directly to you, whoever the winner may be. Once we select the winner, I'm going to get the email address. I'll initiate contact. Once I verify that that person is a real person and not a robot, then I'm going to forward an email over to Acmer with the address and everything for shipping, and they're going to ship that directly to you. Now, I will say, I've reviewed quite a few machines on the channel, and I've worked with quite a few companies on the channel. This is the first time one of them has actually wanted to participate in a giveaway or help me give back to you guys, so I was pretty impressed with it. And that goes a long way. So if you're looking at getting one of these machines, guys, you can click the links down below and go check them out. Or at any time, if you want to look at any machines, feel free to go to my webpage at theclackshack.com and go to Shop with Clack, and there's all sorts of affiliate links in there. And any purchases that you made using those links, of course, will bring a little money back to the shack. But every penny is appreciated, guys, when it comes to that kind of stuff. But Acmer, I appreciate you stepping up and getting involved with the giveaway. I think that's pretty awesome, and I look forward to working with you in the future. So until next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.